You know, there's this romantic image of the business genius that we've held on to for decades. You picture the CEO standing in a boardroom, staring out the window, and making a $1 billion decision based purely on a gut feeling. The golden gut, they used to call it.
Right, the Steve Jobs archetype. The idea that intuition is this magical force that trumps everything else.
Exactly. But looking at the landscape today, that image feels almost vintage? Like using a sextant to navigate when you have GPS. We're swimming in an ocean of data now. Every click, every transaction, every second a machine runs, it's all being recorded. So the question isn't, do we have the information? It's, what on earth do we do with it?
That is the trillion-dollar question. And frankly, that transition from the golden gut to data-driven is where most companies are crashing and burning right now. They're hoarding data like it's dragon's gold, but they aren't actually spending it. They aren't leveraging it to make informed decisions. They're just storing it.
It's the difference between having a library and actually reading the books.
Or better yet, it's the difference between having a garage full of car parts and actually driving a Ferrari. Data analytics in business isn't just about the collection, it's about the synthesis. It's about taking that raw noise and turning it into a signal. Because if you're just looking at a spreadsheet of sales figures from last month, you aren't doing analytics, you're doing history.
That's a great distinction. History versus analytics. Because I think a lot of people hear data analytics and they just think of monthly reports. Here's what we sold. But that's looking in the rearview mirror, isn't it?
Precisely. That's what we call descriptive analytics. It tells you what happened. We sold 5,000 units. Okay, great. But that doesn't help you decide what to do tomorrow. The real magic happens when you move up the ladder. You go from descriptive to diagnostic, why did it happen? Then to predictive, what will happen? And finally, the holy grail, prescriptive analytics.
Prescriptive. That sounds medical.
It kind of is. It's the diagnosis and the cure. Prescriptive analytics doesn't just tell you sales will drop next month. It tells you sales will drop unless you lower the price by 5% in the Northeast region and increase ad spend on Instagram. It gives you the decision on a silver platter.
But that sounds terrifying for a manager, doesn't it? If the algorithm is telling you exactly what to do, what's left for the human? Are we just the ones pressing the execute button?
It feels that way, doesn't it? But here's the paradox. The more data we have, the more important human judgment becomes, not less. Data is literal. It lacks context. It lacks morality. It lacks the ability to read the room. An algorithm might tell you to fire 20% of your staff to maximize quarterly profits, but it can't calculate the long-term cost of destroying your company culture or the reputational damage that follows.
So, the data provides the map, but the human still has to drive the car.
Exactly. Let's look at a classic example, Netflix. They are the kings of data. They know exactly when you pause, when you rewind, what colors on a thumbnail make you click. They use that data to create House of Cards. They knew people liked Kevin Spacey, they knew people liked the British version of the show, and they knew people liked David Fincher. The data said, make this show.
And it was a massive hit.
It was. But notice this. The data didn't write the script. It didn't direct the actors. It didn't create the tension in the scenes. The data identified the opportunity, but the execution was purely human art. That's the sweet spot. Leveraging data for informed decision-making means using data to reduce risk, not to replace creativity.
I love that. Reducing risk. Because business is essentially a game of risk management. But let's play devil's advocate. What happens when the data is wrong? Or maybe not wrong, but misleading?
Ah, the garbage in, garbage out problem, or even worse, bias in, bias out.
Right. Because data is collected by humans, and humans are messy.
There's a famous story from World War II that illustrates this perfectly. The military was looking at planes coming back from battle. They saw bullet holes all over the wings and the tail. So the general said, we need to reinforce the wings and the tail with more armor. It makes sense, right? That's where the data, the bullet holes was.
Sure, reinforce where they're getting hit.
But a statistician named Abraham Wald stopped them. He said, "No, you need to put the armor where the bullet holes aren't."
Wait, why?
Because the planes with bullet holes in the wings came back. The planes with bullet holes in the engines or the cockpit, they crashed. They never returned to be counted. The data was incomplete.
That is brilliant and terrifying.
It's called survivorship bias, and businesses do this every single day. They look at their successful customers and say, "Let's do more of what makes them happy." But they ignore the customers who left. They ignore the planes that didn't come back. If you're analyzing data without understanding the context of what's missing, you will make a data-driven decision that drives you right off a cliff.
So, how does a modern leader avoid that? How do you ensure you aren't just looking at the bullet holes in the wings?
You have to cultivate a culture of skepticism. You can't just worship the dashboard. You have to ask, where did this data come from? What variables are we ignoring? And, most importantly, you have to be willing to kill the hippo.
The hippo?
The HIPPO, the highest paid person's opinion.
Laughs. Oh, I know that person.
We all do. In a traditional meeting, the hypo wins. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I know what customers want. But in a data-driven culture, the data has to outrank the hypo. If the intern has data that contradicts the CEO's hunch, the intern wins. That is a massive cultural shift. It's an ego death for leadership.
That's a tough sell. You're telling the captain of the ship that the navigation computer knows better than his 30 years at sea.
It is tough, but look at retail. Look at Amazon. They don't guess what you want to buy. They don't have a merchant king sitting in a tower saying, "I feel like blue sweaters are in this year." They run thousands of A/B tests. They let the customers vote with their wallets, capture that data, and adjust the inventory in real time. It's a democratization of decision-making, where the market decides, not the manager.
But doesn't that lead to a sort of homogenization? If everyone is using the same data to make the same optimized decisions, doesn't every product start to look the same? Every movie plot follows the same beat sheet?
That is a profound risk. We call it convergence. If all your competitors are using the same algorithms on the same datasets, you all end up at the same optimal solution. And suddenly, you have no competitive advantage. You're just a commodity.
So, the real advantage isn't just having the data. It's asking a question the data hasn't answered yet.
Bingo! The data can answer what and how much. It rarely answers why in a deep philosophical sense. That's where the human intuition comes back in. You use data to validate your intuition or to spot anomalies that spark a new idea. It's a loop. Intuition leads to a hypothesis. Data tests the hypothesis. Results refine the intuition.
Let's talk about the speed of this. We used to do quarterly reviews. Now, we have real-time dashboards. Is there such a thing as too much speed? Are we reacting to noise?
Absolutely. It's the stock market effect. If you check your portfolio every minute, you'll have a heart attack. If you check it every year, you're rich. Businesses are getting addicted to real-time analytics. They see a dip in sales on a Tuesday morning and panic. They change the strategy by Tuesday afternoon. That's not agility, that's instability. You need to distinguish between a trend and a blip.
It's like trying to steer a cruise ship based on every single wave. You'll just go in circles.
And you'll make your crew sick. This applies to employee performance too. We have so much data on employees now, keystrokes, time online, sales calls per hour. We can optimize every second of a worker's day. But if you manage strictly by the numbers, you burn people out. You destroy trust. And guess what? When trust goes down, the data says productivity eventually crashes. So, optimizing the short-term metric destroys the long-term asset.
That brings us back to the ethical side of things. Just because we can measure it doesn't mean we should.
Right, we are moving into an era where privacy is becoming a premium product. Customers are realizing their data is currency. Companies that leverage data responsibly who say, "We use this to make your life better, not just to extract money from you," will win. Trust is the new oil, even more than data is.
I want to pivot slightly to the future. We're seeing AI and machine learning take over the heavy lifting of analytics. We aren't just using Excel formulas anymore. Where is this going in the next 5 to 10 years?
We're moving toward invisible analytics. Right now, you have to go look for data. You open a dashboard, you run a report. In the future, the insights will just be part of the workflow. You're typing an email to a client, and the system whispers, "Hey, this client usually responds better to a formal tone, and based on their usage data, they're likely to churn in 3 months unless you offer a discount."
Wow. So, it's like an augmented reality for business logic.
Exactly. It's an exoskeleton for your brain. It doesn't replace you, it makes you a super manager. But again, it requires you to understand the logic behind the suggestion. If you blindly follow the AI, you're not a manager anymore. You're a cog in the machine.
It seems like the skill set for the future business leader is shifting. It's not about being the loudest voice or having the gut. It's about data literacy.
It is. If you cannot read a data visualization, if you don't understand the difference between correlation and causation, you are functionally illiterate in the modern business world. You don't need to be a data scientist. You don't need to know how to code Python. But you need to know how to talk to the data scientists. You need to know how to ask the right questions.
How to talk to the data scientists. That's a key takeaway, because often the analysts speak one language and the executives speak another.
And that creates the insight gap. You spend millions on tech, millions on analysts, but the insights never make it into the boardroom strategy because of a translation error. The best companies are the ones building bridges there. They have translators, people who understand the business context and the statistical reality.
So, to wrap this up, if I'm a business owner listening to this, and I feel overwhelmed I have data, but I'm not leveraging it, where do I start? Do I buy expensive software? Do I hire a PhD?
Don't start with the tool. Don't start with the hire. Start with the question. What is the one thing you wish you knew about your business that you don't know right now? Is it, why are customers leaving? Is it, which marketing channel actually works? Pick one question. Then, look at the data you have and see if it answers it. If it doesn't, figure out how to capture that specific data point. Start small, prove the value, then scale.
That's refreshing advice. Stop trying to boil the ocean. Just make a cup of tea.
Exactly. A single informed decision is worth more than 1,000 unused dashboards.
It's fascinating to think about. We've moved from the age of the hunter-gatherer hunting for sales, gathering resources, to the age of the agriculturalist, where we plant seeds based on soil data, weather patterns, and genetic analysis. But we still need the farmer to care for the crop.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The tools change, the soil changes, but the need for stewardship remains. Data is just the light. You still have to choose the path.
And perhaps that's the most important lesson. The data illuminates the dark corners, but it's up to us to walk into them. It's been a pleasure dissecting this with you.
The pleasure was mine. Keep watching the numbers, but don't forget to look up at the horizon every once in a while.
We'll leave it there. For everyone listening, take a look at your spreadsheets today, but ask yourself, what is this actually telling me to do? Until next time.